But somewhere late in the conversation, he says to me, and I don't remember the pretext, but he says to me, "Tim, do you know what the most important thing in my life is right now?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Rogers, we just met. How could I possibly know that?" And he replied by saying, "Speaking to Mr. Tim Madigan on the telephone." On the wall of his office in Pittsburgh, there was a quote from the book The Little Prince. "What is essential is invisible to the eye. What is essential is invisible to the eye." And Fred went through life wanting to know about, if you knew him, or even if you didn't, he wanted to know about what he called your essential invisibles. What is it about his neighbor that didn't meet the eye, that was essential? And it was only in the last several years that I think I came to a deeper understanding of what he meant by that. What is it about us that doesn't meet the eye? What are the things that are we most inclined to keep hidden? Is it the stuff we're proud of? Is it the stuff we're happy about? No. It's the shame, it's the fear, it's the sadness, it's the anger, it's the depression, He had his good friend Henry Nouwen said, and Fred often quoted this, he said, what is most personal is most universal. And what is most personal are these things we try to, and for years and years and years, it's like, God, I'm so screwed up and I'm the only one who feels this way. But being screwed up is just part of the human condition. Pain is part of the human condition. Fred knew that. Henry Nouwen knew that. So that's what Fred wanted to know about. So after 6 months of corresponding, I wrote him another letter, a very different letter. I said, "Dear Fred, I'm really happy to be your friend, but if we're going to be friends, I think you'd be the first to agree that you need to know the truth of my life." And so here it is. So I told him about years of what I recognize in retrospect was life-threatening depression. Terribly low self-esteem and struggles in my marriage, and I cannot exaggerate how difficult that moment in my life was. As I said to Fred, at the heart of it all is this haunting notion that all of my life I've been trying to get my father to be proud of me. I try to be a good student, I try to be a good athlete, I try to do this. But I said, Fred, whatever I've done has never felt like it's worked. I don't feel like my father's proud of me. So I said, Fred, I have a question to ask you. Would you be proud of me? And I folded it up, put an envelope, licked a stamp, and mailed it away. You want to know what a difficult time that was? Who would do something that desperate? Anyway, July 1st, 1996, comes his reply. Dear Tim, the answer to your question is yes. Capital letters, exclamation points. A resounding yes. Said, I am proud of you. I will be proud of you. I have been proud of you since first we met. And then he says, I'm deeply touched that you would care to share so much of yourself with me, and look forward to hearing anything you would care to share in the future. Another time he told me, your trust confirms my trustworthiness. And I think that when we can take off the mask, find people who are safe, and get real with them, we are paying that other person about the highest compliment one human being can give to another, which is to say, what? I trust you. He said, nothing you could tell me, spoken in unequivocal terms, nothing you could tell me could change my yes for you. Please remember that. He said, your place in this life is unique, absolutely unique. Do you know how special you really are? Only God can arrange such mutually trusting friendships. Yes, Tim, yes. And for love Fred, and then for the rest of our correspondence, he almost always signed off IPOY. Nothing you could tell me could change my yes for you. There had to be something. And a year and a half after the I'm proud of you letter, I thought I'd found it. The book begins with me putting up Christmas lights at our home in Arlington with a very, very heavy heart. Because a few days before, I told my wife I wanted a separation. Anyway, after the lights were done, I went into my den and I sat down at my computer and started to type, and tears are streaming down my face. And I said, dear Fred, I really hate to have to tell you this, but this is what's going on in my house right now. And I asked him, I said, could you be proud of a guy like that? Folded it up, put it in an envelope, licked a stamp, and mailed it away. A few days later, I had his reply. Dear Tim, please know that I would never forsake you. That I would never stop loving you. That I will always be proud of you. He said, if only we lived closer, I would drive to your house, knock on your door, and when you answered, I would take you into my arms and hug you tight. Those who care about you are privileged to share your pain. More and more I believe that the kingdom of God is for the brokenhearted. And then he signed off this way. You are my beloved brother, Tim. You are God's beloved son. A few weeks later, I wrote him another letter. Catherine and I were not going to separate. I'd gone away and done some soul searching and realized, and not for the first time and not for the last time, that the problem was me, not her. What are you laughing about? It's not funny. And Fred writes me, you know what he said? He said, oh, thank God. He said, you and your wife have been through so much together and continue to grow in such important ways. I'm so happy for you and for your children. And then he signed off by saying, I pray for you every day. And he did. And he said, do you know how important it is to me to have such a trusting and trustworthy friend? Catherine is here tonight. And it's very, very difficult, as you might imagine, for her to listen to this. It was very, very difficult for her to read this. But we were just talking about this the other day. She said, after the letters started coming in, I realized this was a lot bigger than us. And last year was a really hard year. It was this very, very serious illness. And she was the one that bore the brunt of the suffering. I was thinking about this week. Our two kids could not have been more devoted and loving. We have this network of friends that were just supportive to the extreme, and our families. But at the end of the day, it was me and her. It was the greatest privilege of my life to walk with her through that darkness. And I can say that I love her more at this moment than I have ever loved her before. And I believe that in all of our lives, there are these people for whom we can take off the mask. You know, I can say that I'm here tonight with nothing but joy and hope in my heart. Peace. Thank you.
What was his younger life like?
Am I on again? There we go. I was hoping somebody was going to ask that question, because when Fred was a junior high student, he was chubby, he was shy, and he was musical. And guess what happens to chubby, shy, musical kids? And so one day, this group of bullies followed him home in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And they were following home and they were screaming at him, "We're going to get you, Fat Freddy, we're going to get you, Fat Freddy." So he goes in, gets in the house, locks the door, tells his parents about it. His parents say, "Just let on you don't care. Then nobody will bother you." Fred handled it differently. He pounded extra hard on the keys of his piano. He wept when he was by himself. He felt those feelings. Even as a junior high kid, he had the human insight to know that his feelings were real and valid and to be honored and expressed. And so he said, and so a part of his human greatness comes from suffering, right? I think part of it was born, but a lot of it comes from suffering. And he said, little by little, I came to be curious about my neighbor and what it is about them that doesn't meet the eye. And one of his favorite sayings was, the only thing that evil cannot stand is forgiveness. That's probably a good way to end, eh? You all again.